What if I told you that a simple mayonnaise jar could teach us a profound lesson about life? Picture this. A philosophy professor stands at the helm of his classroom, a large and empty mayonnaise jar stealing the spotlight on his table. The room is silent, the air thick with anticipation. Without uttering a word, the professor begins an unusual demonstration. He picks up a collection of rocks, each roughly 2 inches in diameter, and one by one, they clink into the jar. The rocks pile up, filling the jar to the brim. The professor then poses a question to his class. Is the jar full? The students, taken aback by the simplicity of the question, unanimously respond, yes. But as the echo of their voices fades, a lingering question remains. But is the jar really full, or could it hold more? Keep that question in mind as we delve deeper into this unusual class. Just when the students thought they had figured it out, the professor introduces Pebbles to the mix. With a subtle, knowing smile, he lifts a box filled with pebbles and proceeds to pour them into the jar, already filled with rocks. A delicate shake of the jar allows the pebbles to tumble and roll into the open areas nestled between the rocks. He pauses then, looking at the jar and then at the class. So what do you think? Is the jar full now? The students glance at each other, some shrugging, others nodding. The consensus is the same. The jar is indeed full. The professor, however, seems far from finished. With an almost mischievous glint in his eye, he reaches below the table and pulls out a box of fine, almost powdery sand. He starts pouring this into the jar, the tiny grains slipping into the tiniest nooks and crannies, filling up every remaining open space in the jar. The sand seeps around the pebbles, settles between the rocks, occupying spaces that initially seemed non-existent. The professor holds up the jar once more, now filled with rocks, pebbles, and sand. He poses his question again. Is the jar full? This time, there's no room for doubt. The students, observing the jar filled to the brim, respond with a unanimous yes. The professor nods, setting the jar back down on the table. His expression is thoughtful, almost contemplative. He seems to be preparing the class for something more, a greater revelation perhaps. Yet again, is the jar truly full? Or is there something more to this experiment? His question lingers in the air, a challenge and a promise of a deeper understanding yet to be unveiled. The class falls into a hushed silence, the students' curiosity piqued, awaiting the unfolding of the next scene in this peculiar yet profound philosophical experiment. As it turns out, the professor's experiment was not about the jar, but about life itself. He explained that the jar is a metaphor for life. The rocks, he said, symbolize the important things: your family, your health, your children, things that would still make life full even if everything else was lost. The pebbles represent other things that matter, like your job, your house, your car. The sand, that's everything else, the small stuff. His voice grew serious as he emphasized, if you fill your life with sand first, there will be no room for the pebbles or the rocks. The same goes for life. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you will never have room for the things that are important to you. Remember to take care of the rocks first, the things that really matter. Set your priorities. The rest is just sand.